Hi, my name is Aura Walker, and I wanted to make a video about the California wildfires. I'm okay. I've called LA home for 21 years. I grew up in New York City, but in the 90s, myself and actually, I moved here a little after that, but many of my friends moved to LA and resettled here because it was just warmer. The winters are pretty harsh sometimes on the East Coast, and it was a little bit easier. You could put your kids in the car and go to the beach. As many of us started to have children, it just was an easier way of life out here and more affordable. And so many of my friends are out here, and I have been out here for quite a while. So I've called it home in LA now for 21 years. I can't believe it. It's been a time warp. But I wanted to come on and talk about the fires and just say that everyone who lives here, especially those who live on the west side of LA, feel affected. We are definitely affected because of the quality of the air, for sure. We cannot ignore just how intensely awful the air quality is. Today, I drove to Santa Monica for a meeting, and there was like snow particle type things falling on the car and on me and on the chairs, the tables, at the Whole Foods that I was having my meeting at off of Lincoln Boulevard and about Rose Avenue. And what came to my mind was that it was asbestos particles. Um, to give you a perspective, I read that New York, Manhattan is about 14,600 or so acres, and more than double that have burned collectively in the Los Angeles area in the last 3 days. And today is the 10th of January 2025. So, there's a somberness to the city, and my heart, of course, is broken for everyone who's lost their homes. I'm in a more inner inland part of LA that has more concrete around it, less vegetation. And to that point of there being less vegetation, people, particularly those welcoming the incoming felonious Trump, are taking to criticizing our leadership in California, our mayor and our governor, who have been working around the clock, busting their butt, who could not have anticipated this event. In fact, nobody can. Did the people in North Carolina anticipate that there would be a deluge that would drown their valleys and come down the mountains and drown their valleys? They could not anticipate that. Do the people in Kansas and the Midwest anticipate that increasingly intense tornadoes are going to flip homes and motorhomes and cars blocks away? How could anyone have anticipated that this windstorm was going to come to the coast and to that particular region around the Pacific Palisades? And the Palisades are a slanted hill like this facing the ocean. And so when those winds came, they buffered up against that hill. And what happened was that they were winds of 70 to 100 miles an hour, and they started to rattle telephone lines. And so maybe not all the fires, but I think probably Pacific Palisades. Someone said, oh, that there was a backyard fire. I don't know, but it's more likely that the telephone lines were clanking together and were sparking, and that it hit a tree or fell down onto some dried grass. The criticism has been that, according to Trump, we should have vacuumed our forests and we should have vacuumed away all the brush. Most Californians, most Angelenos have actually regular gardeners that come. And so it's not just the brush. What was happening was that the telephone wires were sparking, and those sparks were hitting any trees around, palm trees, brush just on the sidewalk, maybe a bush or something, maybe some dried grass, right? Because we haven't had rain in quite a while. And then you impact that with 100-mile-an-hour winds, and suddenly you have an inferno, and you start having these wind tunnels, and that pushed the fire up the hill And then it carried those embers hundreds of miles away and started other fires. And then we have psychopaths who think that, for whatever reason, they're going to jump on the bandwagon and start some of their own fires. And so we had every first responder, every single firefighter in the region, every single law enforcement, because then we also have these horrible, horrible individuals in gangs that want to go and maraud and pillage and loot while people are fleeing their homes. And so we had police officers in every direction trying to stop that, trying to stop traffic, trying to redirect traffic, and then firefighters. One of the criticisms is that Gavin Newsom didn't sign some agreement with Trump to divert water from a water source up north that would have impacted some fish, some smelt fish in that region, to supply extra water to California. Water in California, actually, our reservoirs are quite stocked from a few years ago, is not the issue. The issue is infrastructure, and the infrastructure of this entire country actually needs an overhaul. The infrastructure of telephone lines and telephone poles, which I grew up seeing all along the East Coast, in New York, in Connecticut, and Massachusetts, is outdated, right, with climate change. So if those lines had been buried, we wouldn't have them hitting each other and sparking up in the air above homes and sending those sparks into trees and bushes and roofs of homes with 100-mile-an-hour winds. So we've reached a time that we now need to start thinking about infrastructure and rebuilding with those telephone lines buried now, because we're going to be dealing with high winds no matter what now. In California also, it is true that over 100 years ago, the early settlers brought plants with them, including, probably palm trees. I'm not sure exactly when they were brought in, like not 100 years ago or maybe 100 years ago, but have become this vegetation of the landscape that are not indigenous to what is mostly desert landscape. So I think it's really a time to go back to desert landscaping, which is more drought hardy and also less flammable. That said, I also think that in rebuilding, we have to look at materials that are sustainable to the environment and also fire resistant or fire retardant. I also want to say that anyone that is trying to lambaste Mayor Karen Bass, who happens to be a Black woman, is probably a white supremacist racist. Because she's doing a really good job. And the thing is that I have my Aura Walker hypnotherapy counseling practice for many, many years, but I'm also a county worker, and I'm familiar with the way that government works. And government is not just one entity, it's many, many entities. And so the criticism of there not being enough water is incorrect. There was water allocated for these neighborhoods, but what happened was that the water allocated was to put out what was over the last 100 years expected in many neighborhoods, 1 or 2 house fires, not something like maybe if any of you are familiar with the San Francisco fires, where that tore up all of San Francisco, maybe with some kind of event that was similar to what happened in the Palisades and here in Altadena, with the winds. So it was really the winds. Let's focus on the winds. It was the winds that made that happen. Basically, those neighborhoods went up like a match, just like that. Within a day or two, those winds died down, and we saw the fires die down quite a bit, even though they're still trying to contain them, because the infrastructure is not supporting the massive requirement of what is needed, right? So DWP has had to work with the county to reinforce the water supply. We have planes coming in from Canada and firefighters coming in from Mexico to gather water from the ocean to then drop it. And that has helped a lot to put out more fires that are towards Calabasas and more inland north. So they are working overtime. They are staunching these fires. They are making a dent in it. They have prevented the fires from coming further into Los Angeles. And really, I think I only heard of maybe 3 or 5 people dying over, possibly 200,000 people who evacuated. So the numbers are staggering. I think that most of those people have friends and family to go to. A number don't. And we do have lots of building going on the west side. So there are apartments, some apartments available, but probably not quite enough. So our housing homeless issue, which is another criticism, oh, it's the homeless. Well, it's not our homeless. It's the homeless coming from all the other states. It's like whack-a-mole. So you house 10 people on the street and 30 more come in on busloads because they're not getting their needs met in the other states. They're not getting basic needs. So if a family finds themselves on hard times, there's not even a soup kitchen to go to in their state of Kansas or Texas or maybe even Florida, right? Where some of these governors have no hearts for their people that hired them, their constituents that they're supposed to work for. They're not taking care of them. So they're coming to California where we are taking care of our residents, right? And people criticize that and call it socialism. Well, the library is socialism, the bus is socialism, and actually public transportation is free right now to help people get around. People have lost their computers, they've lost their cars, they need to get around. What I can tell you as a county worker is file your claims now. File it with the state auditors, file it with your property tax, with the city controllers, with your accountants. File everything, all that you need. You can call 211 for LA County. I will be posting on my page all the resources, the county assessor, if you have property taxes, file a loss claim. If you have insurance, because many of the insurance companies knew that fire season was upon us, and actually late this year, they canceled many people's insurance policies. So whatever you can file it early and soon. There's going to be an influx. There's going to probably be sites crashing, but try to use people's computers and file as soon as you can. And for your cars, your insurance, whatever you can, file it as soon as you can. The water is really compromised, and drinking bottled water is not great, but right now it's probably a better option to have microplastics in your system than asbestos. So I have a water filter, a pretty good charcoal water filter on my tap. If you can get a water filter, then do it. The water's going to be really funky for a while because there's so much smoke in the air and it's just going right into our reservoirs and our water systems. Wear an N95 mask if you have to go into areas that are close to the foothills. In Santa Monica, Altadena, Calabasas, wear an N95 mask because there are all these particulates in the air, and a lot of them you can barely see, and they're just coming down. I mean, they're coming down in Culver City, Santa Monica. It looks like, dry, hard, little teeny round snow or flaky snow, but unfortunately it's ash. So what I also want to say in closing is that I would like to offer my counseling services. My specialty is in stress, anxiety, and trauma release and short-term care. But I want to also allow people to feel their feelings and their grief and to allow the dust to settle literally. And feel free to reach out and contact me, call me if you would like some counseling and some grief counseling. Other than that, please get enough rest if you've been affected, eat well, and once you've felt your feelings, get down to brass tacks and start taking care of what you need to take care of. There are many, many, many Angelinos who are stepping forward to give donations at different donation points, and I am working with my community as well. Whoever you can find the resources through, whether it's friends, family, public libraries, your local outreach stations, you will be able to find those resources. They're going to be plentiful, and we have enough of everything for everybody. Everybody will get something and we'll get a lot back. I promise you that. And so for anyone making nasty comments, derogatory comments, lambasting our leadership, you know what? Put it on pause, go look in the mirror and complain about it to yourself. It's not appropriate, it's nasty, and frankly, we don't need it. So I want to leave you with that, and I hope this has answered some questions about what has happened. People are in shock and they're moving slowly towards recovery. Recovery is going to be long and it's going to be slow and it's going to be a rough 4 years, no matter what. So we have to band together as community. And if you don't think that right-wing Trumpers have been affected by this, you're sorely mistaken. The climate change, the winds, this has been increasing since the 80s. And it does not discriminate against party lines at all. So take care if you've been affected by this or if you have loved ones who have. My heart goes out to everyone out there. I am grieving with you and feeling just very fortunate for the very simple pleasures that I still have in my life. Thank you.